The gates of the palace loomed large and imposing, their towering arches etched with the history of countless rulers. Beyond them stretched the courtyard, paved in smooth stone and lined with statues of past kings and queens. The air was crisp and carried the scent of polished stone, blooming flowers, and the faint temps of distant kitchens. Lunar stood at the gates, her small frame dwarfed by the vastness of the palace. Silver hair fell in gentle waves around her shoulders, and her wide, violet eyes reflected both awe and apprehension. For years, she had lived quietly in her small village, careful to avoid attention, surviving on her wits and caution. But today was different. Today, she had journeyed here, to the heart of power, seeking refuge and purpose in the presence of the Alpha King. Her hands clutched a small satchel tightly, holding nothing but her few possessions and her notebook, a journal she had kept for years, filled with observations, thoughts, and sketches of the world she had quietly watched from the shadows. Every page was a testament to her life in hiding, her careful study of behavior, and her gentle, observant nature. She took a deep breath, forcing herself to step forward. The palace gates opened slowly with a low creak, revealing the vast courtyard. Servants bustled to and fro, their movements precise and practiced, while guards stood tall, silent, and imposing. Lunar felt her heartbeat quicken. Each step she took echoed in the stone courtyard, a reminder of how small and unremarkable she felt in the presence of such grandeur. It was then that he appeared. The Alpha King. He was taller than anyone Lunar had ever seen, his presence commanding yet controlled. Broad-shouldered and strong, he moved with the fluid grace of someone who had spent years mastering both body and mind. His amber eyes, sharp and piercing, swept the courtyard, assessing everything and everyone with uncanny precision. When his gaze fell upon her, Lunar felt a strange flutter in her chest. It wasn't fear exactly, though his aura was undeniably fierce, was a mixture of curiosity and awe. He stood silently, watching her small figure as she approached. She felt exposed, as though every nervous step and trembling hand was on display for him to examine. "State your purpose," he finally said, his voice deep and resonant, carrying authority without malice. Lunar swallowed hard. Words had always been difficult for her in unfamiliar company. Her voice was quiet, barely above a whisper, but she managed to speak with as much composure as she could muster. I seek refuge. I wish to serve. I mean no harm." The Alpha King's eyes did not waver. He stepped closer, his long coat brushing the stone floor with a whispering swish. "And why should I accept you? Many come seeking shelter. Many fail to endure the demands of this palace. You are small, timid, and alone. Why should I grant you entry?" Lunar's heart pounded, but she lifted her chin slightly. Though her voice quivered, her determination shone through. "Because I am observant. I notice things others overlook. I learn quickly. I will serve faithfully and without question. I do not seek privilege or comfort. I seek only to be useful." For a moment, he said nothing. He studied her, amber eyes narrowing slightly, as if weighing her sincerity. Then, slowly, he nodded. "You may enter. But know this, the palace is no place for the timid. Every action is observed, every mistake noted. I do not tolerate weakness lightly. If you fail, you will be cast out." "Yes, Your Majesty," Lunar whispered, a mixture of relief and nervousness washing over her. The palace gate swung fully open, and she stepped inside. The vast courtyard, with its ornate fountains and statues, seemed to swallow her small frame. She felt every eye upon her guard servants, courtiers, but none dared approach her without invitation. The Alpha King walked beside her silently, a shadow of authority and quiet vigilance as they passed. She noticed the subtle details of the palace, the intricate mosaics on the floors, depicting battles and victories from long ago, the statues of noble leaders frozen in stone, their expressions proud and resolute, the gentle murmur of water from the central fountain, which sparkled like liquid silver in the morning sun. Each detail was noted carefully in her mind, every observation adding to the careful tapestry she had woven of her surroundings. "You notice much," the Alpha King said, as if reading her thoughts aloud. Lunar froze slightly, then nodded. I observe to learn, to avoid mistakes, to understand my surroundings." He regarded her for a moment, amber eyes softening fractionally. "Observation is a useful skill. Many in this palace lack it. Many act without foresight, without awareness. That skill may keep you alive here." She felt a faint warmth in her chest at his words. For the first time in years, someone acknowledged her abilities, rather than dismissing her for her small stature or quiet demeanor. She felt a spark of pride, though she quickly tempered it, reminding herself to remain humble. Their walk continued through the palace corridors, each step echoing softly against the marble floors. Lunar's gaze flicked nervously from side to side, taking in the guards' watchful stares, the courtiers whispering quietly among themselves, and the gentle swish of servants moving swiftly to perform their duties. Every movement, every gesture, every expression was carefully noted. "You will have quarters in the eastern wing," the Alpha King said finally. "You are to report there immediately. Familiarize yourself with the staff, the routines, and the protocols. Learn quickly. Observe closely. Failure to adapt will not be tolerated." "Yes, Your Majesty," Lunar whispered again, bowing slightly as she turned to leave. The Alpha King added quietly, almost as an afterthought, "Do not misunderstand my approval. You have only earned observation. Trust is something far more difficult to acquire, and you have yet to earn it." Lunar paused, her hand on the door to the eastern wing. His words, stern yet not unkind, settled in her mind. She had expected nothing less, and yet there was something unspoken in his gaze curiosity. Perhaps even a faint recognition of her potential. "I will earn it," she whispered softly, more to herself than to him. The eastern wing was quiet, the corridors lined with portraits of past rulers. Her room was modest but clean, with a simple desk, a window overlooking the palace gardens, and a small bed neatly made. She set her satchel down, opening it to retrieve her notebook. Sitting at the desk, she began to write, recording every detail from the morning, the palace's structure, the guards' movements, the Alpha King's demeanor, and her own feelings of apprehension and determination. The Alpha King is formidable, stern, and commanding. Observes everything. Amber eyes sharp yet. There is curiosity. He notices small details. Must remain aware. Must observe carefully. Must earn trust. Hours passed in careful study. Lunar practiced walking through the corridors, observing the staff, and memorizing the layouts of the rooms. She noted the subtle cues in the Alpha King's expressions, the timing of his steps, and even the faintest signs of his mood. Slowly, she began to feel less like a frightened intruder, and more like someone who could navigate the palace with awareness and purpose. As evening approached, the Alpha King appeared outside her door. "Report," he commanded, his tone firm but not harsh. Lunar rose, notebook in hand, and recounted the details she had observed, the movements of the guards, the staff's routines, and the subtle dynamics between the courtiers. He listened silently, amber eyes scanning her face and her posture. When she finished, he nodded once, sharply. "Good, you notice things most ignore. That may serve you well. Continue this diligence, and you may survive, even thrive. In this palace, For the first time since she arrived, Lunar allowed herself a small, tentative smile. The Alpha King, standing tall and imposing, noticed the gesture. His amber eyes softened slightly, though he did not comment. Lunar felt a strange warmth in her chest, a small connection. Fragile but real. As he left, she returned to her desk, scribbling quietly. First day. Survived, observed, noticed. Small smile earned recognition. Must continue. Must grow. Must earn trust. And as the night settled over the palace, Lunar felt a flicker of hope. The path ahead was daunting, filled with rules, expectations, and challenges she had never faced. But for the first time, she felt that perhaps she could navigate it, not just survive, but find purpose, courage, and a place where her quiet strength and shy heart might matter. Somewhere deep in the palace shadows, the Alpha King watched from a distance, his gaze lingering on the small figure working diligently at her desk. Fierce and commanding, he had never expected to be intrigued by someone so timid, yet her quiet determination and gentle presence had already begun to draw his attention in ways he could not yet name. And so began the story of the shy Omega who had stepped into the palace, carrying nothing but courage, observation, and a notebook, and who, unknowingly, had already begun to melt the heart of the fiercest Alpha King the kingdom had ever known. The morning sun spilled through the tall windows of the palace, casting long, golden beams across the polished floors. Lunar stood quietly in the servants' corridor, holding a small tray of fresh bread and fruit. Her hands shook slightly, not from fear, but from the anticipation of being observed. For someone who had spent most of her life hiding, even the smallest attention was nerve-wracking. The palace was alive with activity. Servants bustled to and fro, carrying baskets of food, polishing furniture, and attending to countless tasks that kept the massive building running smoothly. Courtiers moved in practiced elegance, whispering amongst themselves, while guards patrolled silently with sharp eyes and precise movements. Lunar felt both small and exposed. Every glance, every gesture felt amplified in the presence of so many watchful eyes. Yet, she reminded herself of the Alpha King's words from yesterday. Observe, learn, adapt. Trust must be earned. Those instructions, stern yet guiding, echoed in her mind as she walked carefully through the corridors. Her first task was simple: deliver breakfast to the kitchens. But even this small errand demanded attention to detail. The Alpha King, known for his strict oversight, had instructed her to observe carefully and note every irregularity in the palace routines. Lunar's violet eyes scanned each corner, her notebook clutched in one hand. "Good morning," she whispered politely to a passing maid, her voice soft and hesitant. The maid nodded in acknowledgement, a small smile showing faint appreciation for the Omega's courtesy. Lunar noted the interaction in her notebook. Politeness observed. Courteous acknowledgement received. Small kindness earns attention. As she rounded a corner, Lunar caught sight of the Alpha King himself. He stood in the main hall, tall and imposing, his amber eyes scanning the room with the precision of a hawk. His posture was rigid, commanding attention without effort. The guards near him moved with silent obedience, anticipating his slightest gestures. Lunar's heart skipped a beat. Even from a distance, he exuded authority. But there was something else, something subtle and unexpected. Behind the stern expression, she caught a fleeting glimmer of curiosity in his eyes. A shiver of anticipation ran down her spine as she hurried past, careful not to draw too much attention. Minutes later, she was summoned to deliver a report about her observations of the palace layout. She found herself in a smaller chamber near the throne room, a place where few dared linger without invitation. The Alpha King waited, standing rigidly near a large window that overlooked the gardens. His gaze swept over her as she entered, assessing her in silence. "You have completed your first day," he said finally, voice deep and commanding. "Report." Luna's hands trembled slightly as she opened her notebook. I observed the kitchen routines, the movement of the servants, and the timing of the guards. There were no irregularities, but I noted that the eastern hallway receives less traffic in the early hours, which may be useful for discrete tasks or observations. The Alpha King's amber eyes narrowed slightly as he considered her words. Then, slowly, he nodded. "You notice small details. That is good. Many in this palace act without thought. Many ignore subtlety. Observation is a skill few possess." Luna's chest warmed at his approval. For the first time, someone in this grand and imposing palace acknowledged her abilities. "He sees me." Even if he does not speak it aloud, she thought, a small spark of pride lighting her chest. "Why are you so attentive to details?" he asked abruptly, his tone more curious than accusatory. I have always observed," Luna admitted softly, her voice barely above a whisper. "It helps me understand, avoid mistakes, and be useful." The Alpha King stepped closer, his gaze studying her intently. Luna felt the weight of his scrutiny, yet she did not flinch. She had spent years practicing control, hiding fear, and maintaining composure. "I can do this," she reminded herself silently. "You are useful," he said finally, amber eyes lingering on her with a faint intensity she could not yet interpret. But usefulness alone does not earn trust. Observation is merely the beginning. Adaptation, courage, and awareness are required for survival here. You will be tested in all three. "Yes, Your Majesty," Luna whispered, bowing slightly. He studied her for a long moment. Then, as if a decision had been made, he turned sharply and motioned toward the hall. "Follow me. I will show you the library. There are books on leadership, strategy, and diplomacy that may aid your understanding. Learn them. Apply them. Do not disappoint me." Luna followed, her steps careful but quick. The palace library was vast, a cathedral of knowledge stretching across 2 floors. Shelves reached high toward the ornate ceiling, filled with tomes, scrolls, and manuscripts. The scent of old paper and polished wood was both intimidating and comforting. "Study here," the Alpha King instructed. "Knowledge is a tool as valuable as strength. Understand it, and you will be prepared. Fail, and your usefulness will be limited." Luna settled at a long wooden table, her notebook open and pen poised. Hours passed as she explored the library, noting rules of conduct, palace hierarchies, and lessons on leadership. Every observation was carefully recorded, cross-referenced, and considered. The Alpha King occasionally glanced over, silently observing her diligence. At one point, he stepped closer, amber eyes narrowing slightly as he pointed to a passage in a book. "You see the diplomacy in these examples. Notice the subtle cues, the timing, and the influence of small gestures. Power is not always loud. Sometimes it is quiet, deliberate, and precise." Luna nodded, scribbling in her notebook. "Power in subtlety. Small gestures carry weight. Timing is essential." Observation applied to action. As the day drew to a close, the Alpha King led her back to her quarters. The corridors were quieter now, the afternoon light softening the stern lines of the palace. He paused outside her door, his imposing figure silhouetted against the fading sunlight. "You have potential," he said quietly, his voice carrying a rare softness. "Small, unassuming, but capable. Continue to observe, to learn, and to act with precision. There is more to this palace and to me than you yet understand." Your first impressions have been satisfactory. Lunar's lips curved into a tentative smile, shy but genuine. She felt warmth bloom in her chest. Satisfactory. He means it. He notices me. The Alpha King gave a curt nod and turned away. Luna watched him go, her heart beating with a mixture of pride, anticipation, and the strange stirrings of something she did not yet understand. She returned to her desk, pen in hand, writing quickly. First day. Observed, tasks completed, learned, and noticed. He is formidable, but not unkind. Small smile noted. Must continue to earn trust. As night fell, Luna sat by her window, gazing out at the palace gardens bathed in moonlight. The fountains glimmered, the trees whispered in the gentle breeze, and the distant city lights twinkled like stars. She felt a quiet determination settle over her. The palace was vast, daunting, and full of challenges, but for the first time, she believed she could rise to meet them, somewhere deep within the palace. The Alpha King watched from a balcony, amber eyes lingering on the small figure in her room. He did not speak, did not move, but he allowed himself a faint acknowledgement of her diligence, her quiet determination, and the subtle spark of courage that set her apart from the timid, frightened Omega he had first observed. And so began the delicate dance of observation, learning, and trusted dance that would shape the shy Omega's path in the palace, and gradually, quietly, begin to melt the heart of the fiercest Alpha King the kingdom had ever known. The sun had barely risen above the palace towers when Luna stepped into the main courtyard, her satchel neatly secured over her shoulder. The courtyard was alive with activity. Servants carrying baskets of food, guards marching in precise formation, and courtiers moving gracefully toward their appointed duties. The air was crisp, carrying the faint scent of morning dew mixed with polished stone and blooming flowers. Today was different. She could feel it in the rhythm of the palace, the subtle way the guards' eyes flicked toward the central hall, the tension in the air, and the unmistakable aura of the Alpha King, who had already begun his morning rounds. "Your first task today," he said, appearing beside her without warning, his voice low and commanding, yet not unkind, "is not a test of strength, but of courage. You will deliver messages to the northern wing of the palace and return with confirmation that your instructions were understood. Observe carefully, act decisively, and do not falter." Luna's hands trembled slightly at the weight of responsibility. Carrying messages seemed simple enough, but in the palace, even the smallest error could carry consequences. She nodded quickly, keeping her head slightly lowered. "Yes, Your Majesty," she whispered, her voice soft but steady. The Alpha King studied her for a moment, amber eyes narrowing thoughtfully. "Courage is not absence of fear," he said quietly, as they began walking together. "It is the ability to act in spite of it. Remember this as you move through the palace. Watch, anticipate, and do not hesitate." She nodded, committing the words to memory. Each step she took felt deliberate, as though the very stones of the palace could judge her movements. Luna had spent years observing quietly, hiding in the shadows. But now she was being asked to step forward literally and figuratively into a world that demanded attention, precision, and bravery. Her first stop was the northern wing, a maze of corridors lined with portraits of past rulers and polished wooden doors that gleamed in the morning light. She paused briefly to observe the patterns of movement among the staff, noting the subtle signals between guards and courtiers. Every detail mattered. Every gesture carried meaning. When she reached the first office, she knocked lightly. "Message for the northern wing," she said softly, handing over the parchment she had carried. The staff member accepted it with a polite nod, glancing at her with curiosity. Luna returned a small bow, stepping back carefully to observe the response. Polite acknowledgement received. Instructions understood without error. Courteous interaction maintained, she wrote quickly in her notebook. Courage applied through composure as she moved down the corridor, delivering messages to various officers. Lunar encountered her first real challenge. A group of courtiers engaged in a heated discussion, their voices rising in frustration. One of them blocked the hallway, clearly in no mood to move aside. Lunar paused, heart pounding. Fear whispered in her mind, urging her to retreat, to find another path. But she recalled the Alpha King's words. Courage is acting in spite of fear. Swallowing her apprehension, she stepped forward. "Excuse me," she said softly, but firmly. "I must pass to deliver important messages from the Alpha King." The courtiers looked at her, surprised by her confidence and clarity. One stepped aside reluctantly, allowing her passage, while the others exchanged glances before following suit. Lunar exhaled quietly, heart racing, but proud of her composure. Fear acknowledged. Action taken despite fear. Courage demonstrated through calm and clarity, she wrote, noting every detail for later reflection. Returning to the central hall, she found the Alpha King waiting, his presence as imposing as ever. He did not speak immediately, simply watching her approach with those penetrating amber eyes. "You handled the courtiers well," he said finally, his tone neutral but his gaze sharp. "Most would hesitate, stumble, or avoid confrontation entirely. You did not." Lunar lowered her gaze, a faint blush rising in her cheeks. I tried to remember your words," she whispered. "Courage is acting despite fear." He gave a slow nod, a subtle acknowledgement of her growth. "Yes, and you've succeeded. Courage is not innate. It is learned, practiced, and refined. Today you have taken the first steps toward mastery." Encouraged by his words, Lunar felt a quiet surge of pride. For years, she had doubted herself, hiding behind shyness and silence. But here, in the palace, she was learning to act with intention, to trust her abilities, and to step forward even when the world seemed daunting. Later that day, the Alpha King led her to a small training courtyard near the eastern towers. Though she had never handled a weapon or engaged in combat, he wanted to teach her a different kind of courage, situational awareness and self-confidence in the face of uncertainty. "Observe first," he instructed, gesturing to a series of simple challenges: a misplaced tray, a rolling cart, and guards performing maneuvers. "Notice patterns, anticipate movement, and respond calmly. Your mind must act before fear can paralyze you." Lunar watched carefully, her violet eyes tracking every detail. When a tray tipped, she stepped forward to catch it before it fell. Her movements hesitant at first, then more fluid with each attempt. She guided a rolling cart safely around obstacles, anticipating the paths of nearby guards and courtiers. The Alpha King observed silently, his arms crossed, amber eyes softening faintly as he noticed her growing confidence. "Good, your observations are precise. Your reactions are improving. Courage is building not through bravado, but through awareness and preparation." Hours passed as Lunar practiced quietly, refining her movements and responses. By the time the sun began to set, casting long shadows across the courtyard, she felt a deep sense of accomplishment. Not only had she demonstrated courage, but she had also begun to internalize the lessons of observation, foresight, and self-assurance. As they walked back to the central hall, the Alpha King spoke softly. "You have done well today. Not all will recognize courage in a quiet Omega. Many seek strength in force, in volume, in aggression. But true courage is measured in composure, intelligence, and deliberate action. You are beginning to understand this. Lunar's heart swelled with quiet pride. She had feared the Alpha King's scrutiny, the palace's rigid expectations, and her own self. Yet, she had acted with bravery, and her actions had not gone unnoticed. That evening, Lunar returned to her quarters, notebook in hand. She wrote meticulously, documenting the day's lessons. Courage applied through action. Fear acknowledged, not ignored. Observation guides response. Confidence grows through practice. Small victories build strength. Sitting by the window, she gazed out at the palace gardens, where fountains glimmered in the fading light and flowers swayed gently in the evening breeze. She allowed herself a small, tentative smile, feeling a quiet sense of belonging begin to take root from somewhere deep within the palace. The Alpha King observed silently from a balcony. His amber eyes lingered on her small figure, diligently working and recording, noting her careful attention and growing courage. For the first time, he felt something shift her recognition, not just of her potential, but of the gentle, quiet strength she carried within her. And as night settled over the palace, Lunar felt a faint spark of hope and determination. She was learning, growing, and taking steps toward becoming more than just a timid Omega. She was learning to act with courage, to trust her own abilities, and to navigate the palace with awareness, composure, and quiet strength. The palace walls, which had once seemed towering and intimidating, no longer felt insurmountable. With each lesson, each observation, and each small act of bravery, Lunar was slowly forging a path for herself, one that would not only earn the Alpha King's trust, but also begin to melt the edges of his fierce heart. The first snow of the season had fallen quietly during the night, blanketing the palace gardens in a soft, pristine layer of white. The fountains were capped with frost, their water frozen into delicate crystalline patterns, and the trees sparkled with icy diamonds glinting in the early morning sunlight. The air was sharp and crisp, filling the lungs with the scent of snow and evergreen. The palace buzzed with anticipation. Today was the winter festival, a celebration of the season's beauty and the unity of the court. Lanterns were strung across the courtyards, their warm glow contrasting with the white snow, and stalls had been set up with food, music, and games. Courtiers moved gracefully, adorned in rich garments that shimmered with embroidered snowflakes, while servants hurried quietly to ensure every detail was perfect. For Lunar, the festival was both awe-inspiring and intimidating. Though she had grown accustomed to the palace in the past weeks, her shy nature still made her cautious in crowded spaces. Her silver hair fell neatly over her shoulders, and she wrapped a woolen scarf around her neck for warmth. She clutched her notebook instinctively, the pen tucked in her pocket, a source of comfort and grounding in the midst of so much movement. Today you will observe, but you may also participate, the Alpha King said quietly as he appeared beside her. His tall frame cast a long shadow across the snow, and his amber eyes scanned the festival preparations with precise attention. Though he spoke softly, his presence commanded the space around him, drawing respect and subtle deference from the bustling crowd. Lunar looked up at him, a faint smile tugging at her lips. "Participate," she whispered. He nodded once, serious yet encouraging. "Yes. Observation alone will not teach the full measure of leadership or social nuance. Watch closely, but engage thoughtfully. Small gestures matter more than words here." She nodded, though her stomach fluttered nervously. Engaging in public was not something she had done often. Her world had mostly been quiet and measured, observing from shadows and corners. Yet, she knew she could not shrink away. Not today. The festival began with a parade of lights. Servants and musicians moved gracefully through the courtyard, carrying lanterns and instruments, their movements synchronized with care. Lunar followed at a cautious distance, noting every gesture, the subtle cues in each performer's posture, and the way the Alpha King's eyes tracked every motion. It was during this moment that Lunar first allowed herself to relax slightly. A small group of children ran past her, their laughter ringing clear in the crisp air. One tripped on the snow, and Lunar instinctively stepped forward, catching the child before he could fall fully to the ground. She helped him back to his feet, offering a shy smile. The Alpha King, observing from a distance, allowed himself the faintest crack of a smile. The child's mother glanced at Lunar, gratitude shining in her eyes, and Lunar quickly turned away, scribbling a note in her pocket notebook. Kindness observed, reaction measured and thoughtful. Small gestures impact mood and perception as the day progressed. Lunar found herself drawn into small tasks, helping decorate a tree with delicate frost-covered ornaments, arranging lanterns along the paths, and assisting the cooks with handing out warm bread and cider. Her careful movements and polite demeanor did not go unnoticed by the staff or courtiers, many of whom paused to observe the shy Omega's grace in handling each task with quiet efficiency. At one point, she paused to adjust a lantern that had slipped slightly on its hook. The Alpha King was nearby, his amber eyes fixed on her. She felt a flutter of nervousness. He was so near, so commanding, but she took a deep breath and continued her task deliberately, carefully and with precision. "You are meticulous," he said quietly, his voice carrying just enough for her to hear. "Attention to detail and care in execution. These are qualities that inspire trust, even without words." Lunar's cheeks warmed slightly. "Thank you, Your Majesty," she whispered, bowing her head modestly. She felt a quiet pride in her heart. For the first time, she was not just surviving in the palace, but contributing in a meaningful way. As the afternoon sun began to fade, a small performance began in the central courtyard. Musicians played on delicate strings and flutes, while dancers moved gracefully in flowing garments. Lunar paused to watch, captivated by the elegance and rhythm of their movements. She felt the snow crunch softly beneath her feet as she stepped slightly closer, careful not to obstruct anyone's view. The Alpha King stood behind her, silent but alert. She felt the warmth of his presence, not imposing, but protective. His eyes were fixed on the dancers, though he occasionally glanced at her, amber gaze softening subtly whenever their eyes met. It was a strange sensation, being observed so closely, yet feeling no judgment, only quiet attention and a hint of admiration. One of the palace guards accidentally dropped a tray of small pastries nearby. Without thinking, Lunar bent quickly, scooping them up and arranging them neatly back on the tray before anyone noticed. Her quick action prevented embarrassment for the young guard, and she stepped back gracefully, her cheeks flushed from exertion. The Alpha King's gaze lingered on her for a long moment. "Clever," he said softly. "Quick thinking and attention to surroundings. These qualities are valuable in both court and palace life. You have a presence that calms and corrects without command." Lunar felt a rush of warmth in her chest. She had never imagined that her small actions, her careful attention, could carry such significance. A shy smile formed on her lips, tentative but genuine, that it was then that she noticed him watching her more intently than ever before. The Alpha King's fierce demeanor remained, but the softening around his eyes, the subtle tilt of his head, spoke volumes. For someone so used to commanding authority, the quiet admiration he was offering her felt extraordinary. The festival drew to a close with the lighting of the lanterns. Each glowing orb was released into the night sky, floating upward in a cascade of golden light against the darkening winter sky. Lunar watched, her violet eyes reflecting the dancing lights. A sense of peace settled over her, as though the palace itself had accepted her, even in her quiet, shy way. The Alpha King stepped beside her, his presence grounding yet unobtrusive. "You handled yourself well today," he said softly. "You were attentive, careful, and kind. The palace has not seen such composure and grace in some time. Your smile, it carries a subtle influence, gentle but powerful." Luna's cheeks flushed. She had never thought of her smile as anything significant. Yet, hearing the Alpha King acknowledge it not for vanity, but for the effect it had on others, filled her with a quiet, profound happiness. "Thank you," she whispered, her voice barely audible. The warmth in her chest grew, mingling with pride, relief, and a budding sense of belonging. He did not respond immediately, only allowed his gaze to linger on her for a few more moments. Amber eyes that had commanded armies and courtiers softened slightly, reflecting a silent acknowledgement of the shy Omega who had, in a few short hours, begun to influence the palace with nothing more than her careful actions, quiet attention, and gentle smile. That evening, Luna returned to her quarters, notebook in hand. She recorded every observation, the tasks she had completed, the courtiers' reactions, the subtle lessons she had learned about courage, attention, and influence. But she also wrote something new, something that had been absent from her journal until now. A smile can be more powerful than words. Quiet courage and kindness inspire trust. Influence grows through gentle presence. As snowflakes drifted softly against the window, she allowed herself a small, genuine smile. The palace, once overwhelming and intimidating, now felt less like a fortress and more like a place where her quiet strength could matter. Somewhere in the palace shadows, the Alpha King watched from a balcony. Amber eyes lingered on her small figure, the way she had moved, interacted, and contributed. He allowed himself the faintest acknowledgement, the shy Omega, who had stepped into the festival hesitantly, had already begun to touch the heart of the fiercest Alpha King the kingdom had ever known, not through force, not through words, but through gentle courage, careful observation, and a simple, sincere smile. The morning air in the palace was unusually crisp, carrying the faint scent of parchment, ink, and polished stone. Luna sat quietly at a corner of the grand strategy room, her violet eyes scanning the elaborate maps, miniature figurines, and notes strewn across the long oak table. The Alpha King stood at the head of the room, his imposing frame silhouetted by the morning light streaming through towering windows. Amber eyes, sharp and calculating, followed every movement she made as she adjusted the positioning of the miniature pieces on the map. Today was no ordinary day. The Alpha King had arranged a challenge of intellect and foresight, a test that would measure the Omega's ability to think critically, anticipate outcomes, and navigate complex situations. For Luna, who had spent most of her life quietly observing, this was a new type of trial, one that demanded courage of a different kind, courage of the mind. "You will begin by evaluating the placement of our forces," the Alpha King instructed, voice deep and commanding. "Observe the positions, consider the terrain, and anticipate potential conflicts. Your task is not to act physically, but to provide solutions that maximize efficiency, prevent mistakes, and demonstrate foresight. Most fail because they underestimate subtlety. Do not." Luna's hands trembled slightly, though not from fear of physical danger. The challenge was one of mental precision, and the stakes, though unspoken, felt immense. She took a deep breath, recalling the Alpha King's lessons from the past week's observation. Calm, courage, and attention to detail. She examined the map carefully. Each miniature figurine represented a division of the palace guards or nearby allies, and each shaded area denoted terrain that could hinder movement. There were subtle details in the map: a narrow bridge prone to congestion, a grove of trees that could conceal movements, and a fountain in the central courtyard that could slow reinforcements. Lunar's mind worked methodically, considering each factor and imagining potential outcomes. After several minutes, she began to reposition the figurines, creating a pattern that balanced defense, efficiency, and adaptability. She considered unlikely scenarios: guards distracted by ceremonies, courtiers moving unexpectedly, and potential miscommunications between divisions. Every adjustment was deliberate, every placement purposeful. The Alpha King watched silently, amber eyes narrowing slightly as he noted her methodical approach. Most would rush, relying on instinct or force of will. Lunar, however, was calculating, precise, and remarkably thoughtful. "You notice details others overlook," he remarked quietly. "The position of the central fountain, the narrow bridge. Most would not account for these as obstacles. Explain your reasoning." Lunar lifted her gaze, meeting his intense stare. Her voice was soft but steady. "The fountain is centrally located, and while it may seem insignificant, it disrupts movement. If an unexpected diversion occurs, it could delay reinforcements. The bridge is narrow, making it a choke point. By adjusting the positions here, we minimize congestion and create multiple paths for movement. Additionally, placing scouts near the grove allows us to detect any unplanned activity." The Alpha King's expression remained stoic, but a flicker of approval passed through his amber eyes. "Well considered. Many would rely solely on strength or numbers. Few recognize that foresight and strategy are as powerful as the sword. You are among the few." Encouraged by his words, Lunar continued to analyze the map, refining her positions and adding annotations for potential scenarios. Hours passed, punctuated only by the scratch of her pen and the occasional note from the Alpha King, when she finally stepped back. Satisfied with her solution, he walked around the table, examining every placement carefully. "This is impressive," he said finally, amber eyes scanning the map. "You have accounted for multiple contingencies and devised solutions that minimize risk while maximizing effectiveness. Your understanding of subtle factors is remarkable for someone so young, and I might add, so quiet." Lunar bowed her head modestly. "Thank you, Your Majesty. I try to notice what others may overlook." The Alpha King's gaze lingered on her, amber eyes sharp yet tinged with something softer. An acknowledgement not just of her skill, but of her mind's quiet brilliance. Observation, courage, and now intellect. "You are proving yourself capable in ways few can claim. This strengthens my trust in you, though it is still early. There is more to test, more to observe, and more for you to learn." Her cheeks warmed slightly at his words. Though she had grown accustomed to the palace's demands, hearing genuine approval from the Alpha King, fierce, discerning, and usually reserved, was a rare and precious affirmation. Later that afternoon, a smaller exercise was introduced. The Alpha King presented a complex puzzle involving palace logistics, supply routes, and staff allocation. Lunar was asked to identify inefficiencies and propose solutions that would improve overall function. She approached the challenge methodically, taking careful notes and considering every variable: the pace of the servants, the timing of deliveries, the coordination between guards and courtiers, and even the subtle preferences of key staff members. After nearly an hour of careful thought, she presented her solution, detailing improvements that optimized efficiency and minimized potential conflicts. The Alpha King listened, arms crossed, amber eyes scrutinizing her every word. When she finished, he nodded slowly. "Your solution is elegant. You did not merely correct errors. You anticipated problems before they arose. Few possess such foresight, let alone the patience to analyze every possibility. This is a skill few leaders achieve, and yet you demonstrate it naturally. Lunar felt a quiet sense of accomplishment. Each praise, though understated, was a thread weaving her into the fabric of the palace's inner workings. She was no longer merely a shy omega hiding in the shadows. She was a participant, a thinker, and a contributor. As the day waned, the Alpha King summoned her to the central hall once more. "Intellect alone is not enough," he said softly, almost conversationally. "The cleverest mind must act with integrity and calm under pressure. Many fail because they allow pride or fear to cloud judgment. Today, you have demonstrated both skill and composure. This is promising." For a moment, Lunar allowed herself to feel a quiet pride. She had worked diligently, observed keenly, and acted thoughtfully. And now, the Alpha King, who had seemed untouchable and fierce, was showing signs of respect and admiration. "Your Majesty," she whispered, lowering her head slightly, I will continue to learn. I will not disappoint you." The Alpha King's gaze softened imperceptibly. "I do not expect perfection. I expect growth, observation, and dedication. You are providing all three. That is rare." Later that evening, Lunar returned to her quarters, notebook in hand, and recorded the day's lessons meticulously. Observation paired with intellect yields strength. Subtlety and foresight are as important as action. Composure under pressure inspires trust. Quiet diligence earns recognition, as she wrote. She reflected on the small victories, the careful adjustments on the map, the logistical improvements, and the subtle acknowledgement in the Alpha King's gaze. These were milestones she had never imagined achieving, yet they marked her growth and the slow building of trust between them. Somewhere within the palace, the Alpha King watched from a balcony. Amber eyes lingered on her small figure, writing in her notebook, reflecting on the intelligence, composure, and quiet brilliance she displayed. Fierce and commanding as he was, he could not deny the impression she was leaving her, subtle influence that was beginning to reach the edges of his formidable heart. And as the palace settled into the quiet of night, Lunar allowed herself a small, genuine smile. The shy Omega who had once stepped timidly through the gates was now proving herself capable, clever, and resilient. Each lesson learned, each observation recorded, was a step closer to the trust, respect, and quiet bond she was beginning to share with the fiercest Alpha King the kingdom had ever known. The palace corridors were unusually quiet that morning. Most of the staff were occupied with preparations for the seasonal feast, and the usual bustle of courtiers had not yet begun. Lunar, notebook in hand, moved carefully along the eastern wing, her silver hair catching the morning light streaming through the tall windows. Today, she was tasked with something unusual, exploring the palace's forbidden garden under the supervision of the Alpha King himself. The Forbidden Garden had earned its name long ago. No ordinary guest or servant was permitted entry, for it contained rare flora, intricate fountains, and hidden pathways that required careful attention to navigate. Some said the garden reflected the Alpha King's temperament, beautiful, controlled, and meticulous. Yet, with shadows and secrets lurking in its corners, you will follow closely and observe everything, the Alpha King instructed as they approached the garden's arched entrance. Wrought iron gates, curling with delicate patterns. This garden is more than decoration. It is a reflection of strategy, patience, and foresight. Do not underestimate its lessons. Lunar's violet eyes widened at the sight before her. The garden was a marvel. Delicate snow-white flowers bloomed amidst frost, their petals glistening in the sunlight. Statues of long-forgotten rulers watched silently from niches among the trees, and the air carried the faint scent of jasmine, pine, and fresh earth. Every path was carefully paved, every fountain meticulously maintained. Even in the quiet, Lunar felt the weight of attention, as though the garden itself demanded respect. She followed the Alpha King through the first archway, carefully noting the patterns of the garden, the way shadows shifted with the sun, the positioning of rare plants, and the subtle sounds of trickling water. Every detail mattered. Every observation was a lesson in awareness and mindfulness. "You are unusually attentive," the Alpha King remarked, his voice low and measured. Few noticed the subtle patterns of movement, the interplay of light and shadow, or the positioning of flora in relation to pathways. Yet these details reveal much about their caretaker's intent and philosophy. Lunar's heart raced slightly under his gaze. Though the comment was observational, she felt the weight of approval. I try to notice everything, Your Majesty," she whispered softly. "It helps me understand." He nodded, amber eyes sharp, yet not unkind. Understanding precedes action. Awareness precedes judgment. You are beginning to grasp these lessons well. They continued deeper into the garden, passing through a narrow pathway bordered by frost-covered hedges. At the center, a small marble fountain gurgled softly, water frozen in parts, but still flowing in others. Lunar knelt briefly to examine the intricate carvings on the fountain, noting the delicate craftsmanship and the subtle symbolism of the figures etched into stone. "Why do you notice such details?" the Alpha King asked, standing behind her. "Most see beauty, but they miss purpose. The fountain is as much a lesson in patience and precision as it is decoration." Lunar straightened, considering her answer. "I believe every detail matters. Even small things can teach something important. Observing them helps. Understand what is valued and how one should act." He studied her silently, amber eyes narrowing slightly as if weighing her sincerity. Then, in a rare gesture, he allowed a faint smile. "Well said. Many would overlook such subtleties. Your attention demonstrates more than intelligence. It demonstrates care, patience, and a willingness to learn. Qualities I respect." Lunar felt warmth flood her chest. This was the closest she had come to feeling true acknowledgement from the Alpha King, not just for her skill, but for her character. They walked further, passing a small grove of silver-leaved trees. Snow crunched softly beneath their feet. A narrow bridge spanned a shallow pond, its surface partially frozen. Lunar approached cautiously, mindful of the ice and the subtle shift in weight with each step. The Alpha King observed her silently, not interrupting, allowing her to act with autonomy while remaining nearby at the far end of the garden. A secluded alcove awaited, its walls covered with climbing vines and delicate flowers. It was a quiet, private place, hidden from the view of anyone who did not know the paths well. The Alpha King gestured toward a bench beside a small fountain. "Sit," he commanded, tone firm but not unkind. Lunar lowered herself onto the bench, her notebook resting on her lap. She took a deep breath, savoring the tranquility and the rare sense of solitude within the palace walls. The Alpha King remained standing nearby. His gaze softened as he observed the quiet composure she displayed. "This garden," he said, breaking the silence, "is a test of more than attention. It is a test of patience, and the ability to recognize beauty and order without attempting to control it. Many in my court are impatient, eager to act or dominate. You have learned to observe first." Lunar tilted her head, processing his words. "I try not to rush," she said softly. "I want to understand before acting." He nodded once, amber eyes lingering on her thoughtfully. "Understanding before action. A principle few follow. That you do sets you apart. Your approach is subtle, yet effective. Quiet, yet meaningful." For a long moment, silence hung between them. Lunar could feel the Alpha King's gaze, But it was not imposing. It was contemplative, almost protective, a subtle warmth she had never noticed before. She dared a small, shy smile, and this time he did not look away. "You smile too," he remarked quietly, his voice carrying a rare gentleness. "It brightens a space, even one as controlled and disciplined as this garden. Few understand the power of a simple expression, yet it is effective." Luna's cheeks flushed, but she allowed herself the small gesture. Her smile was hesitant, yet genuine, a reflection of the pride, relief, and comfort she felt in his rare acknowledgement. The Alpha King continued to walk slowly beside her, explaining the history of the garden, the symbolism in each fountain and statue, and the lessons intended for those who could see beyond mere aesthetics. Luna listened attentively, absorbing every word, jotting notes in her notebook with care. She realized that this private time was more than a lesson in observation. It was an opportunity to connect, to learn not just about the palace but about the Alpha King himself, his values and his expectations. As the afternoon light began to fade, casting golden shadows across the garden, the Alpha King stopped at a small pond, its surface reflecting the intricate lattice of trees above. "You have done well today," he said quietly. "Your attention, patience, and careful observation have proven effective. I trust your judgment more than I expected. Continue as you have. There is potential here for both growth and influence if you maintain this dedication." Luna bowed her head slightly, heart swelling with quiet pride. "Thank you, Your Majesty. I will continue to learn." The Alpha King's gaze lingered on her for a moment longer, amber eyes soft but focused. Then he turned, gesturing toward the exit. "Return to your quarters. Reflect on today's lessons. You have shown capability, composure, and subtle insight. These are qualities rare in this palace, and you possess them naturally." Luna rose, clutching her notebook, and followed him out of the garden. Each step felt lighter, as though the garden's quiet beauty and the Alpha King's rare warmth had infused her with newfound confidence. That evening, Luna recorded her reflections meticulously. Patience reveals truth. Observation without interference teaches more than action alone. Beauty and order reflect values and philosophy. A smile can influence even the sternest hearts. Quiet diligence inspires trust. As snowflakes drifted against her window, she allowed herself a small, satisfied smile. She had not only learned from the garden, but she had also begun to understand the Alpha King's expectations, his values, and the subtle ways in which trust could be built through patience, observation, and quiet courage. Somewhere within the palace, the Alpha King watched from a balcony overlooking the garden. His amber eyes lingered on her figure, noting her careful attentiveness, her growing confidence, and the gentle warmth of her presence. Fierce and commanding as he was, he could not deny the impression she was leaving a shy Omega, quietly brave, capable, and slowly beginning to influence the heart of the fiercest Alpha King the kingdom had ever known. And in the serene silence of the Forbidden Garden, Luna felt a flicker of understanding. She was no longer merely a visitor in the palace, but a participant, a learner, and a quietly powerful presence capable of leaving a lasting impact.
The palace was unusually quiet that morning. Even the steady hum of servants moving through the halls seemed subdued, as if the building itself held its breath. Luna, notebook clutched tightly in her hands, moved carefully along the polished corridors. Today promised a test unlike any she had faced before, a challenge devised by the Alpha King to assess her ingenuity, patience, and ability to navigate unexpected obstacles. "You will find that not all challenges are visible at first glance," the Alpha King had told her the night before, amber eyes glinting in the dim candlelight. "Some are hidden, subtle, and require careful observation. Others are loud, chaotic, and demand quick thinking. Both will test you, you must succeed. Luna had spent the night preparing, reviewing her notes on palace layouts, staff routines, and the lessons she had learned in the Forbidden Garden. Despite her careful preparation, her stomach fluttered with nervous anticipation. She knew that the Alpha King's tests were designed to reveal character as much as skill. When she arrived in the Grand Hall, the Alpha King was already there, standing near a massive tapestry that depicted a scene from the kingdom's early days. His amber eyes swept over her attentively. "The challenge awaits," he said simply. "Follow me." They moved through a series of corridors, some familiar, others rarely visited. Eventually, they arrived at a small locked room near the eastern wing. The door was sturdy, made of dark oak with iron hinges. Luna noticed immediately that the lock was complex, a lattice of interwoven metal and delicate mechanisms. "This is the first part of your test," the Alpha King explained. "You must gain access. But this is not merely about opening a door. You must observe, deduce, and act with precision. Many have failed because they rushed, assumed, or relied solely on strength. Do not. The key lies in understanding." Luna knelt carefully in front of the lock, her violet eyes scanning every notch and groove. She observed how the iron caught the light, the subtle differences in thickness, and the faint pattern etched into the wood surrounding it. Slowly, methodically, she began to manipulate the mechanisms, testing small movements without forcing anything. The Alpha King watched silently, amber eyes intent but calm. He did not interfere, allowing her to discover the solution through observation and reasoning rather than instruction. Luna felt her pulse quicken. Each adjustment, each careful movement brought her closer to understanding. Minutes passed. Her hands moved with growing confidence as she analyzed the patterns of the lock. Finally, with a subtle click, the door opened. Luna exhaled softly, relief washing over her. "You approached this wisely," the Alpha King said quietly. "Many would have forced the lock, damaged the mechanism, or failed entirely. Observation, patience, and careful analysis succeeded where brute force would have failed. Remember this lesson. It applies to all challenges in life and leadership." She nodded, jotting a note in her notebook. "Patience and observation overcome obstacles. Force is not always the answer. Subtle understanding is key." Inside the room, Luna found a series of puzzles and tasks designed to test her reasoning and adaptability. There were patterns to decipher, coded messages to interpret, and sequences of actions that required careful planning. Each task was more complex than the last, and the room itself seemed designed to challenge both mind and composure. Luna worked through them systematically, relying on logic, intuition, and the lessons she had learned from the Alpha King. When she encountered particularly tricky puzzles, she paused, reflecting on past strategies, considering multiple approaches, and choosing the one that seemed most precise. Her pen moved swiftly across her notebook, recording observations, solutions, and reflections. The Alpha King circled the room silently, observing her progress without interruption. At one point, he paused near a puzzle that required assembling intricate pieces to form a cohesive pattern. Luna's hands trembled slightly, but she reminded herself of his guidance. Courage is not absence of fear. It is action despite fear. Slowly, carefully, she pieced the puzzle together, double-checking each placement before moving to the next. When the final piece clicked into place, a hidden panel in the wall opened, revealing a small compartment with a folded parchment inside. Luna retrieved it and unfolded the note, which contained a final riddle, a lesson in strategy, foresight, and subtle influence. She read the riddle carefully, thinking through each line, each hidden clue. The solution required not only intelligence but also patience, observation, and an understanding of human behavior, the very skills the Alpha King had been teaching her since her first day in the palace. Minutes later, she scribbled her solution on a clean sheet of paper and held it up for the Alpha King to see. He approached, amber eyes scanning her answer with intense focus. Then, to her quiet astonishment, he nodded once, a rare, almost imperceptible sign of approval. Correct, he said simply. You have demonstrated reasoning, patience, and insight. But more importantly, you have demonstrated composure. A clever mind without calm is easily led astray. You possess both. Luna's chest swelled with quiet pride. She had faced the Alpha King's hidden challenge and succeeded, not through haste or instinct alone, but through careful thought, courage, and observation. Your growth is evident, he continued, his tone softer than usual. Many would have faltered under pressure, doubted themselves, or given up entirely. You did not. This reflects character, resilience, and potential. Continue on this path, and you will achieve far more than you imagine. Luna bowed her head slightly, overwhelmed by a mixture of pride and humility. Thank you, Your Majesty. I will continue to learn and do my best. The Alpha King studied her silently for a long moment. Then he gestured toward the exit. Return to your quarters. Reflect on today's lessons. You have faced hidden challenges with intelligence, courage, and composure. These qualities are rare, and yet you exhibit them naturally. As Luna walked through the palace corridors toward her quarters, notebook in hand, she reflected on the day's experiences. The hidden challenge had tested not only her intelligence, but also her patience, courage, and composure. Each puzzle, each riddle, had been an opportunity to apply the lessons she had learned from the Alpha King. Observation, careful thought, and quiet diligence. That evening, she recorded her reflections meticulously. Hidden challenges reveal true character. Observation and patience overcome obstacles. Composure under pressure is a measure of strength. Intelligence coupled with courage is a rare and valuable skill. From somewhere deep within the palace, the Alpha King watched silently. Amber eyes lingered on her small figure, noting her perseverance, subtle intelligence, and the quiet courage she exhibited in solving complex problems. He allowed himself a rare, faint acknowledgement of her skill, not for vanity, but for the thoughtful, capable presence she had become within the palace. And as the palace settled into night, Luna allowed herself a small, satisfied smile. She had faced her first hidden challenge, succeeded through careful thought and courage, and earned the Alpha King's approval. The Shy Omega who had once walked hesitantly through the gates was now quietly proving herself capable, clever, and resilient, a presence that was beginning to influence even the fiercest Alpha.
The palace was silent when Luna awoke that night. Moonlight filtered softly through the tall windows of her quarters, casting silver shadows across the floor. Though the corridors were empty and the staff fast asleep, Luna felt a quiet pull in her heart, a curiosity she could not ignore. For weeks, she had observed the palace, learned its routines, and tested her skills under the Alpha King's guidance. Yet one mystery remained: the palace library, known as the Midnight Library for its restricted hours and rare collection of ancient texts. Rumors whispered that it contained forgotten knowledge, hidden strategies, and secrets of rulers long past. Tonight, she would explore it. Not recklessly, but with care and patience, the lessons the Alpha King had instilled, guiding her every step. She wrapped her silver cloak around her shoulders, tucked her notebook securely into her satchel, and stepped quietly into the moonlit halls. The corridors were colder at night, their polished floors reflecting the faint light of torches that lined the walls. Luna moved softly, each step deliberate. She knew the palace's architecture almost by heart, yet the quiet heightened her awareness. Every shadow, every subtle sound became part of her observation. When she arrived at the library doors, she paused. The heavy oak doors were adorned with carvings of ancient emblems, their patterns intricate and beautiful. Luna placed her hand gently on the door, feeling the cool wood beneath her fingers, and whispered softly, "Patience." Observation first. She examined the lock, noting its complexity. Unlike the lock of the hidden challenge, this one relied not only on mechanisms, but on knowledge letters, symbols, and subtle cues that indicated the correct sequence. Luna's violet eyes scanned the carvings carefully. She traced each line, each symbol, and finally, with a soft click, the doors opened. Inside, the library was breathtaking. Towering shelves lined the walls, filled with ancient tomes, manuscripts, and scrolls. The scent of old paper, polished wood, and faint lavender lingered in the air. Lanterns hung from the ceiling, casting a warm glow that illuminated the intricate carvings of mythical creatures along the bookshelves. Luna stepped cautiously into the library, her heart swelling with awe. She moved between the aisles, fingers brushing lightly over spines, reading titles in careful silence. Each book seemed to whisper secrets from a bygone era, knowledge waiting patiently for someone curious enough to uncover it. Suddenly, a shadow moved across the far end of the library. Luna froze. Her heart skipped a beat. The Alpha King stepped forward from behind a tall shelf, his amber eyes soft in the lantern light. "You are here," he said quietly, voice carrying both surprise and a rare warmth. "I had not expected this." Luna bowed her head slightly. I wanted to learn," she whispered. "The library. It seemed important. There is so much to understand." He studied her for a long moment, then nodded. "Curiosity is a valuable trait, but it must be guided by patience, respect, and observation. You are learning to balance all three." Encouraged by his words, Luna moved deeper into the library. The Alpha King followed at a discreet distance, allowing her space while observing silently. She found a section of books on strategy, diplomacy, and leadership areas she had only begun to understand under his guidance. She selected a volume on ancient rulership, opening it carefully to study the text and diagrams. Hours passed in quiet study. Luna scribbled notes in her notebook, analyzing patterns, strategies, and lessons that could be applied to the palace. She cross-referenced ideas with her previous observations, drawing connections between the wisdom of the past and the challenges she faced today. At one point, she stumbled upon a puzzle hidden within a texture riddle left by a past ruler that required insight, patience, and clever thinking. Luna studied it intently, her mind working methodically. The solution was not immediately obvious, and several attempts were needed before she correctly interpreted the clues. When she finally solved it, the Alpha King's soft, approving voice broke the silence. "Well done," he said. Many would have abandoned the riddle, frustrated by its subtlety. "You approached it with patience, observation, and reasoning. That is rare." Luna's cheeks flushed, but she allowed herself a small, satisfied smile. "Thank you, Your Majesty," she whispered. I tried to remember your lessons." He nodded once, amber eyes lingering on her. "Observation, patience, curiosity, all qualities I have sought in those who serve. You possess them naturally, yet you refine them through action. This is impressive." Encouraged, Luna explored further, finding texts on palace architecture, history, and even horticulture. She made careful notes, connecting the knowledge to the lessons she had learned in the Forbidden Garden and during the Hidden Challenge. Each discovery strengthened her confidence. Each connection deepened her understanding. At one point, she found a small alcove within the library, where rare scrolls rested on a carved pedestal. She approached carefully, feeling the weight of responsibility. The scrolls contained strategies of past rulers, not just for warfare, but for governance, diplomacy, and leadership. Luna carefully unrolled one, studying the elegant script and detailed illustrations. "You are meticulous," the Alpha King said quietly, standing behind her. "Few approach such knowledge with respect and care. Many rush, damage the scrolls, or overlook their significance. You show thoughtfulness, diligence, and patience. These are qualities that inspire trust." Luna bowed her head slightly, heart swelling with pride. I want to understand, Your Majesty. Want to learn everything I can? He studied her silently, amber eyes softening. Learning is a lifelong journey. Knowledge without application is wasted, yet application without knowledge is reckless. You are beginning to understand this balance. Time passed unnoticed as they worked quietly together. Lunar read, analyzed, and recorded notes, while the Alpha King occasionally offered insights or asked questions that challenged her reasoning. Their exchange was calm, respectful, and full of unspoken admiration. Lunar began to see not only the palace, but the Alpha King himself through this lens, a leader who valued thoughtfulness, patience, and intelligence as much as courage and strength. When the first light of dawn began to creep through the library windows, Lunar closed her notebook. She felt a quiet sense of accomplishment and growth. Not only had she navigated the Midnight Library successfully, but she had also begun to understand the deeper lessons it offered. The importance of careful observation, the power of curiosity, and the value of applying knowledge thoughtfully. The Alpha King regarded her silently for a moment, then said softly, "You have done well. The library is not a place for idle curiosity. It is a test of patience, respect, and intellect. You have proven yourself capable." Lunar allowed herself a small smile, warmth spreading through her chest. "Thank you, Your Majesty," she whispered. "I will continue to learn, and I will not forget the lessons of this place." He nodded once, a rare, almost imperceptible gesture of approval. "You are proving yourself more than capable, Lunar. Your diligence, intelligence, and courage, they are becoming a quiet force within this palace. Remember this, knowledge and patience are as powerful as courage and strength. Together, they shape leaders and influence hearts." As Lunar left the Midnight Library, notebook in hand, she felt a sense of purpose she had never experienced before. The palace no longer seemed overwhelming. It was a place of learning, challenge, and subtle influence. Each lesson, each observation, each quiet achievement brought her closer to the trust and respect of the Alpha King. From a shadowed balcony above, the Alpha King watched silently. Amber eyes followed her small figure, noting her focus, her curiosity, and the quiet determination she displayed. Fierce and commanding as he was, he could not deny the impact she was having as shy Omega. Quietly brave, intelligent, and patient, slowly becoming an irreplaceable presence in the heart of the palace and in the stillness of the Midnight Library. Lunar felt a flicker of understanding. True growth comes not only from courage, but from curiosity, diligence, and the quiet application of knowledge. She was no longer merely an observer of the palace. She was a participant, a thinker, and a quietly powerful influence, one that even the fiercest Alpha King could not ignore.
The palace had been transformed for the Festival of Lanterns. Each courtyard and hallway glowed with warm light, as thousands of lanterns, large and small, were carefully arranged to illuminate every corner. The air smelled of pine, warm bread, and the faint perfume of flowers brought in for the occasion. Music drifted softly from the central courtyard, where dancers in flowing garments moved gracefully, their motions reflecting the flickering light. Luna moved quietly through the preparations, her silver hair glinting in the lantern glow. She carried her notebook as always, though tonight it seemed less like a tool for observation and more like a source of comfort. Though shy by nature, Luna had grown increasingly confident in the palace over the past weeks. Still, the scale of the festival, the bustle of courtiers, and the presence of the Alpha King made her heart flutter. "You will join the preparations actively tonight," the Alpha King instructed as he appeared beside her, amber eyes sweeping over the glowing courtyards. "Observation alone will not suffice. Your insight and composure will be tested in ways subtle and direct." Luna nodded, inhaling deeply to steady her nerves. "Yes, Your Majesty," she whispered. She felt a mix of excitement and apprehension. The first task was overseeing the arrangement of lanterns along the palace walkways. Luna noted the subtle variations in light and shadow, the potential obstacles for guests, and the optimal positions for safety and beauty. She suggested small adjustments to the placement of several lanterns, ensuring that the paths glowed evenly and safely while creating the most enchanting visual effect. The Alpha King observed silently, amber eyes focused but not imposing. Occasionally, he offered a word of advice or a subtle nod of approval, allowing Luna to act independently while benefiting from his guidance. As she worked, Luna noticed a small child struggling to place a lantern on a higher hook. Without hesitation, she moved closer and, using a nearby stool, helped the child reach the correct position. Her gentle voice guided the child patiently, her hands steady and sure. The Alpha King watched this interaction closely. A rare softness touched his amber eyes as he noted the Omega's patience, empathy, and quiet competence. It was not a grand gesture of heroism, but a subtle act that revealed her character more clearly than any public display could. When the lanterns were finally in place, Luna turned her attention to the central courtyard, where the main event of the festival would take place, the release of the floating lanterns into the night sky. The courtyard had been carefully prepared, with tables arranged for guests, fountains softly glowing, and musicians quietly tuning their instruments. Luna approached a small group of younger courtiers who seemed unsure of the procedures. Calmly, she explained the steps: how to light the lanterns safely, how to hold them before release, and the order in which they would be set afloat. Her gentle guidance was met with quiet appreciation. Even the most timid courtiers responded to her calm authority, trusting her knowledge and patience. The Alpha King stood nearby, observing silently. His amber eyes followed her every move, noting the quiet way she influenced others, not through command, but through composure, patience, and kindness. A subtle admiration glimmered in his gaze, softened by the warm lantern light. As the evening progressed, the time for the lantern release arrived. Luna held her own lantern carefully, watching the courtyard fill with glowing orbs. One by one, courtiers and palace staff released their lanterns into the sky. The warm lights drifted upward, illuminating the courtyard and casting soft reflections on the snow-dusted pathways. Luna felt a quiet sense of awe. The sight was breathtaking, 1,000 points of light floating into the night sky, carrying wishes, hopes, and quiet dreams. For a moment, she allowed herself to forget her shyness, her insecurities, and simply be present in the wonder of the moment. The Alpha King approached silently, standing beside her. His amber eyes reflected the lantern glow, and for the first time, Luna felt a profound sense of connection, not through words, but through shared experience and mutual observation. "You handled tonight with care, patience, and insight," he said softly. "The festival is not merely a display of light and beauty. It tests organization, empathy, and composure under pressure. You have excelled in all areas." Luna's cheeks flushed, but she allowed herself a small, grateful smile. "Thank you, Your Majesty," she whispered. "I tried to remember all the lessons you taught me." He studied her silently, amber eyes reflecting both respect and a rare warmth. "You have done more than remember lessons. You have applied them naturally, subtly, and effectively. Your presence influences this palace in ways more than one. You are becoming invaluable." Encouraged by his words, Luna turned her attention back to the courtyard. A lantern near the fountain had drifted too close to the edge. She moved quickly, adjusting its position safely, and guided it into the center of the courtyard before it could topple. The Alpha King observed, noting her proactive vigilance and quiet composure. As the night deepened, the final lanterns were released. The courtyard shimmered with reflected light, snow-dusted pathways, and the soft glow of lanterns floating high above. Guests murmured in appreciation, unaware of the meticulous effort and thoughtful planning that had made the event not only beautiful, but safe and orderly. Luna felt a quiet pride swell in her chest. She had not only participated, but had influenced the festival's success through observation, composure, and gentle leadership. The Alpha King's presence beside her was steady, silent, and reassuring, a reminder of the trust and acknowledgement she had earned through weeks of careful effort. "You have done exceptionally tonight," the Alpha King said finally, breaking the quiet. Not through force, not through command, but through careful attention, patience, and quiet influence. Many would not have noticed the small details that matter most. Yet you did. Luna lowered her gaze slightly, her heart swelling. I am honored, Your Majesty," she whispered. "I will continue to learn and I will continue to do my best." The Alpha King allowed himself a rare, faint nod. "Your growth is evident. You are becoming capable, observant, and influential in subtle, meaningful ways. Remember this. Even small acts, guided by wisdom and patience, can shape hearts and outcomes far beyond expectation." As the festival drew to a close, Luna returned to her quarters, notebook in hand. She recorded the lessons of the night. Observation and patience shape influence. Composure under pressure inspires trust. Quiet guidance and small acts of care have profound impact. Leadership is as much about empathy and diligence as it is about authority. From a balcony above, the Alpha King watched the glowing lanterns drifting into the night sky. Amber eyes lingered on Luna's small figure, noting her careful attentiveness, quiet courage, and gentle wisdom. Fierce and commanding as he was, he could not deny the impression she was leaving. A shy Omega, quietly brave, patient, and intelligent, slowly shaping the heart of the fiercest Alpha King the kingdom had ever known. And as the lanterns rose higher, painting the sky with points of warm light, Luna felt a quiet understanding. Leadership, influence, and courage were not always measured in grandeur or strength. Sometimes they were found in patience, observation, and the quiet guidance of a gentle heart. She allowed herself a small, serene smile. The shy Omega, who had once hesitated at the palace gates, was now quietly proving herself capable, influential, and courageous. A presence that even the Alpha King could not overlook, nor fail to respect.
The morning sun filtered gently through the palace windows, casting long, soft shadows across the grand halls. Luna moved quietly through the corridors, notebook in hand, her silver hair catching the light. Today, however, there was a subtle tension in the errand unspoken challenge awaiting her. The Alpha King had summoned her for a task unlike the ones before. It was not a test of intellect or observation, nor of patience or skill. This time, it would be a test of loyalty, judgment, and moral courage, the kind of challenge that could reveal character more deeply than any puzzle or riddle. You will face a situation requiring careful discernment, the Alpha King explained as they reached a private chamber. His amber eyes were steady, unwavering, yet unusually soft. What you choose to do and how you choose to act will demonstrate not only your skill, but your integrity. Few succeed. Many falter. Luna's heart thumped softly in her chest. A test of loyalty was far more daunting than any lock, map, or riddle. She nodded, determined. I understand, Your Majesty," she said quietly. The task began immediately. A series of letters and reports had been left on a table in the chamber, detailing minor conflicts between palace staff and courtiers. Some reports were exaggerated, others misleading, and a few contained false accusations meant to provoke discord. Luna was instructed to review them and decide how best to act. She studied each document carefully, reading between the lines, noting inconsistencies, and considering the potential consequences of any action. Every choice mattered, and any misjudgment could result in mistrust or injustice. Her violet eyes scanned the reports, her mind weighing facts, tone, and context. "This is more than merely identifying the truth," the Alpha King remarked, standing silently behind her. "It is about understanding motives, discerning intentions, and acting with fairness. You must balance loyalty to the palace with honesty, integrity, and compassion. Few can do all three. Lunar exhaled slowly. She began drafting responses, carefully addressing each report. She sought to correct misinterpretations, prevent unnecessary conflict, and guide those involved toward understanding and cooperation. Each note was thoughtful, measured, and deliberate, reflecting her growing wisdom and her ability to act calmly under pressure. When she reached a particularly delicate complaint that implicated a long-trusted servant, she paused. Acting too hastily could damage an innocent person's reputation, while ignoring the report might seem negligent. Lunar considered the facts, her observations from previous weeks, and the subtle cues she had learned to read from people's behavior. With careful wording, she drafted a response that addressed the issue diplomatically, ensured fairness, and encouraged reconciliation. She double-checked every phrase, aware that her judgment was being tested as much as her intellect. The Alpha King watched her silently. Amber eyes narrowed slightly, not in disapproval, but in careful evaluation. When she finally finished, he spoke quietly, his voice carrying both authority and a rare warmth. You have approached this task with thoughtfulness, integrity, and discretion, he said. Many would have acted out of fear, impulse, or convenience. You have not. You have balanced loyalty with justice, insight with caution. This is commendable. Lunar bowed her head slightly, her heart swelling with a mixture of pride and relief. Thank you, Your Majesty. I tried to consider everything carefully. I wanted to act fairly. He nodded once, amber eyes lingering on her thoughtfully. Fairness is not weakness. It is strength. Courage is not only in bold action, but in the quiet choice to act rightly despite uncertainty. You are learning this and proving it with each step. Encouraged, Lunar moved on to review the remaining reports, her confidence growing with each careful decision. She noticed subtle patterns among the complaints, miscommunications, overlooked instructions, and small misunderstandings that had grown unnecessarily tense. She drafted solutions that addressed the root causes, promoting clarity, collaboration, and trust among the palace staff. At one point, she encountered a situation that required direct intervention. Two staff members were in disagreement over the distribution of resources, each claiming fairness while unknowingly creating tension for the other. Lunar approached them calmly, listening to both sides without judgment, and guided them toward a resolution that honored both perspectives. The Alpha King observed silently, amber eyes reflecting a rare approval. He had expected hesitation, conflict, or error, but Lunar's measured, empathetic approach exceeded his expectations. Her ability to act with fairness and courage, even in subtle matters, revealed a depth of character that few had demonstrated in his court. As the day progressed, Lunar completed the review and intervention process. Each choice she had made was guided by observation, patience, and integrity. She had not sought recognition, yet her actions had resolved tension, fostered understanding, and strengthened the trust within the palace. The Alpha King approached her as she finished her notes. You have succeeded, he said quietly, not because the task was simple, but because your choices reflected loyalty tempered with wisdom, courage guided by fairness, and insight applied with empathy. You have earned more than approval. You have earned trust. Lunar's chest swelled. Trust from the Alpha King was more valuable than any praise, reward, or accolade. She bowed her head, her voice steady despite the quiet tremor in her heart. I will continue to act with care, honesty, and fairness, Your Majesty. I will not fail you. He studied her silently for a long moment. Amber eyes softened, reflecting a subtle warmth. You have already proven yourself capable of far more than many could imagine. Your loyalty, integrity, and courage are evident. Remember this: true strength is measured not only in action, but in thought, compassion, and understanding. You possess these qualities naturally, and you refine them through careful action. Lunar felt a quiet pride swell in her chest. She had faced the Alpha King's moral challenge and succeeded, not through force or fear, but through wisdom, empathy, and integrity. The shy Omega, who had once walked hesitantly through the palace gates, was now quietly proving herself capable, thoughtful, and courageous, a presence that was beginning to influence even the fiercest Alpha King the kingdom had ever known. As evening descended over the palace, Lunar returned to her quarters to record the lessons of the day. Loyalty must be balanced with integrity. Courage is measured in quiet, right choices. Empathy strengthens influence. Wisdom guides action. True leadership requires observation, patience, and fairness. From a shadowed balcony above, the Alpha King watched the palace settle into night. Amber eyes lingered on Lunar's small figure, noting her quiet diligence, thoughtful courage, and the subtle influence she had already begun to wield within his court. Fierce and commanding as he was, he could not deny the impression she was leaving a shy Omega. Patient, intelligent, and brave, quietly shaping the heart of the Alpha King himself. And in the calm silence of the palace night, Lunar allowed herself a small, satisfied smile. She had faced her test of loyalty, succeeded with wisdom and courage, and strengthened the trust of the fiercest Alpha King the kingdom had ever known. The palace was unusually quiet that morning. Even the distant hum of the kitchens and staff seemed muted, as if the walls themselves were holding their breath. Lunar walked the polished corridors, her notebook tucked under her arm. Though she had faced challenges before, today promised something different to rare. Personal assignment directly from the Alpha King himself. You are entrusted with a matter of discretion, the Alpha King had said the night before, amber eyes fixed on her with unusual intensity. It requires care, judgment, and composure. Many have faltered under similar responsibility. I trust that you will succeed, Lunar. Her heart had skipped a beat at his words. Trust from him was a treasure beyond measure, earned slowly and carefully over weeks of observation, patience, and quiet courage. She had faced hidden challenges, moral dilemmas, and public events, but this task felt personal, a step beyond mere duties into recognition of her capabilities. The assignment involved reviewing preparations for an upcoming diplomatic visit. A visiting delegation from a neighboring kingdom would arrive in 3 days, and the Alpha King required Lunar to inspect arrangements, note discrepancies, and ensure the palace projected precision, composure, and elegance. Lunar approached the grand hall first, noting the meticulous layout of tables, chairs, and decorations. She observed not only the aesthetics, but the flow of movement, how guests would navigate the space, where attention would be required, and which details might be overlooked. She made careful notes, recording each adjustment with precision. You have an eye for detail, the Alpha King remarked quietly, appearing at her side without warning. Amber eyes scanned the hall as if weighing her observations. Few notice subtle flaws in planning or anticipate issues before they arise. You do both naturally. Lunar's cheeks warmed at the praise. Thank you, Your Majesty, she murmured, striving to keep her composure. I want to ensure everything is perfect for your guests. He studied her silently, amber eyes reflecting a rare warmth. Perfection is not merely aesthetic. It is preparation, foresight, and composure. Your attention demonstrates that you understand this. Few do. Moving through the palace, Lunar noted that several staff members were unfamiliar with certain procedures. Rather than correct them harshly, she guided each one with patience and clarity. She explained the proper placement of decorations, the timing of announcements, and the etiquette for serving the delegation. Her quiet authority and careful guidance ensured that each task was completed correctly without embarrassment or conflict. The Alpha King observed silently, his gaze following her movements. Each correction she made, each gentle instruction she offered, was executed with calm precision and subtle influence. He noted not just her skill, but the character behind her actions, careful, compassionate, and composed under pressure. When they reached the eastern wing, Lunar discovered a misalignment in the arrangement of banners that would have been visible to guests. She paused, considering the most efficient solution without drawing undue attention. Using a small step stool and careful adjustments, she corrected the placement, ensuring symmetry and elegance. "You act decisively when required," the Alpha King remarked quietly. "Yet you do not act rashly. That balance is rare. Most falter either by hesitation or haste. You demonstrate composure beyond your years." Lunar's heart swelled with pride. Each word of acknowledgement from him felt like a rare treasure, a testament to the quiet growth she had achieved in the palace. She dared a small smile, and the Alpha King allowed it to remain unchallenged. Amber eyes briefly softening. Next, they entered the central courtyard, where preparations for the evening's ceremonial greeting were underway. Lunar noted minor issues: the placement of torches, the alignment of benches, and the paths guests would take from the entrance to the main hall. She adjusted each detail with meticulous care, recording her observations in her notebook and ensuring that every element reflected the dignity of the palace and the wisdom of its ruler. "You have not only observed, but anticipated," the Alpha King said softly. "Anticipation is a skill most never acquire. You possess it naturally, yet refine it through practice. That is why I trust you." Lunar's chest swelled with quiet pride. Trust from the Alpha King was not given lightly. It was earned through weeks of careful attention, patience, and quiet courage. She realized that each lesson, each challenge, and each subtle success had led to this moment: personal recognition, acknowledgement of her abilities, and a growing bond founded on respect and competence. As the sun dipped toward the horizon, casting a golden glow over the palace, Lunar moved to the gallery overlooking the gardens. She noticed that several lanterns intended for the evening display were misaligned. Rather than rushing, she paused, observing the natural flow of light, the symmetry of shadows, and the positioning of decorative elements. Slowly and carefully, she made the adjustments, ensuring that the display would create a harmonious effect once lit. The Alpha King stood silently behind her, amber eyes watching as she worked. When she finally stepped back to review her corrections, he nodded once, a rare, deliberate gesture of approval. "You have earned my trust," he said quietly, voice carrying both authority and warmth. "Not merely because of skill, but because of composure, diligence, and integrity. You are capable of more than many could imagine. Remember this: trust is earned, maintained, and demonstrated through careful, consistent action. You have shown this today." Lunar lowered her gaze, feeling a mixture of pride and humility. "Thank you, Your Majesty," she whispered. I will continue to act with care and thoughtfulness, and I will honor the trust you have placed in me." He regarded her silently for a long moment. Amber eyes softened, reflecting a subtle warmth she had rarely seen. "I do not trust easily," he said finally. "Few earn it. You have. Let that guide your actions, and you will continue to grow, influence, and inspire in ways you have yet to imagine." Encouraged by his words, Lunar continued to oversee the preparations for the evening. her confidence growing with each adjustment, each instruction, and each careful observation. The palace, once overwhelming in its scale and activity, now felt like a place where her contributions mattered, where her patience, intelligence, and composure shaped outcomes and earned respect. As night fell, the ceremonial greeting began. Guests arrived in orderly procession, and the palace shone under the soft glow of lanterns and torches. Lunar observed discreetly, noting the flow of the event, the comfort of the guests, and the dignity of the Alpha King as he received them. Each small detail, previously unnoticed by most, was in place, reflecting her careful guidance and thoughtful adjustments. From a shadowed balcony, the Alpha King observed her silently. Amber eyes followed her small figure, noting the quiet influence she had exerted over the palace that evening. Fierce and commanding as he was, he could not deny the impact she had made. A shy Omega, thoughtful, composed, and capable, subtly shaping the palace and earning a rare, personal acknowledgement from the Alpha King himself. When the final guest departed and the palace settled into quiet, Lunar returned to her quarters to record the lessons of the day. Trust is earned through diligence, composure, and consistent action. Influence is achieved through thoughtfulness, patience, and quiet guidance. Recognition is rare, but it reflects the value of careful effort and integrity. She allowed herself a small, serene smile. The shy Omega who had once hesitated at the palace gates was now quietly proving herself capable, trusted, and influential a presence that even the Alpha King could not overlook or underestimate. And in the stillness of the palace night, Lunar understood. True trust is not demanded or commanded. It is earned, nurtured, and reflected through quiet, consistent actions, and she had earned it through patience, courage, and thoughtful wisdom. The palace awoke to a soft morning light that streamed through the tall windows, illuminating the grand halls in a warm, golden glow. Lunar moved quietly through the corridors, her notebook tucked under her arm. Today felt different, lighter, yet charged with a subtle energy that made her pulse quicken. The challenges, the lessons, and the tests of patience, courage, and loyalty she had faced over the past weeks had brought her to this moment. The Alpha King had summoned her personally to the throne room, a rare honor in itself. Amber eyes met hers as she entered, the intensity of his gaze softened by an unspoken acknowledgement of her growth. You have completed your assignments with diligence, patience, and wisdom, he began, voice steady yet carrying a warmth that made Lunar's chest swell. You have faced hidden challenges, moral tests, public responsibilities, and the scrutiny of my observation. And through all of this, you have proven yourself capable, thoughtful, and courageous. Lunar lowered her gaze, feeling a quiet pride. I am grateful, Your Majesty, she whispered. I have tried to learn and apply all you have taught me. The Alpha King studied her silently, amber eyes reflecting subtle admiration. You have more than learned, Lunar. You have grown, not merely in skill or knowledge, but in understanding, influence, and quiet strength. The palace is vast, filled with tradition, protocol, and responsibility. Yet you have found your place within it not by asserting yourself, but by observing, guiding, and acting with care. Lunar's chest warmed at his words. This was recognition beyond anything she had dared hope for, not for her diligence alone, but for the character she had quietly nurtured, the courage she had applied, and the composure she had maintained. Your presence, the Alpha King continued, stepping slightly closer, has influenced the palace in ways subtle yet profound. Staff act with greater diligence, courtiers respond with respect, and even the smallest details are attended to with greater care. Have become the heart of this place, not through authority, but through wisdom, patience, and integrity. Luna blinked, the words settling in like sunlight on her soul. She had never imagined that her quiet observations, careful guidance, and thoughtful actions could hold such meaning, not only to the palace but to the Alpha King himself. "I am honored, Your Majesty," she whispered. "I will continue to do my best and to serve with care and thoughtfulness." He nodded once, a subtle but deliberate gesture of approval. "I do not trust easily. Few earn it. Fewer still inspire it through action rather than words. You have done both. You have earned my trust, my respect, and my admiration." Luna's heart swelled, a quiet light blossoming within her. She realized that her journey from the hesitant Omega who had walked timidly into the palace gates to the thoughtful, capable presence she had become was complete in its purpose. She had not sought recognition or approval, but through patience, courage, and careful action, she had found both. "Your growth is remarkable," the Alpha King continued. "But it is not only about knowledge, skill, or composure. It is about understanding the essence of leadership and influence. You have grasped this subtly, naturally, and with quiet humility. That is rare. That is invaluable." Luna bowed her head slightly, overwhelmed by both pride and humility. I am grateful for your guidance, Your Majesty. Without your lessons, I could not have grown in this way." He studied her silently for a long moment, amber eyes reflecting both thought and a rare warmth. Then, with a measured, almost imperceptible nod, he said, "You belong here, Luna. Not as an observer, not as a guest, but as part of the very heart of this palace. Your insight, composure, and courage, they are now woven into the rhythm of this place. You have earned your place fully and without question." Luna's eyes widened, and a quiet, serene smile spread across her face. For the first time, she truly felt at home in the palace, not just within its walls, but in its spirit, its duties, and its heart. The Alpha King gestured toward the grand windows, where the first light of dawn bathed the palace gardens in gold and silver. "Look beyond these walls, Luna," he said softly. "Leadership, influence, and courage are not only measured within this palace. They extend outward, shaping lives, guiding hearts, and influencing events far beyond what you can see. You have begun this journey quietly, thoughtfully, and courageously." Luna followed his gaze, watching the gardens shimmer in the early morning light. She felt the weight of responsibility, yes, but also the lightness of purpose. Every lesson, every challenge, every quiet act of observation and guidance had brought her here to this moment of acknowledgement, trust, and belonging. "I will remember your words, Your Majesty," she whispered, "and I will continue to act with thoughtfulness, patience, and courage wherever I am needed." He allowed her words to hang in the air, amber eyes reflecting a subtle warmth. "That is all I could hope for. The palace thrives on trust, diligence, and quiet courage. You have proven that you possess all three. More than that, you have proven that even the smallest presence, when guided by wisdom, patience, and integrity, can shape the heart of this palace and the hearts within it." Luna's chest swelled with pride and quiet joy. She realized that the shy Omega she had once been the one who had feared being noticed, who had hesitated at the gates, was no longer that person. Through courage, observation, and subtle influence, she had become a vital, respected presence in the palace, earning the trust and admiration of the fiercest Alpha King the kingdom had ever known. As the morning light spilled across the marble floors, the Alpha King gave her a rare, almost imperceptible nod of acknowledgement. "You have earned your place," he said softly, "and you have earned my trust. Never forget the power of patience, courage, and quiet wisdom. They are as strong as any sword, as enduring as any wall, and as influential as any decree. Lunar bowed her head in respect and gratitude. I will remember, Your Majesty, and I will continue to grow, guided by your lessons. He watched her silently, amber eyes reflecting approval and quiet admiration. You are extraordinary, Lunar. And now, the palace, the staff, and I. We are fortunate to have you here not only as a presence, but as the heart of this place. A serene, joyful smile spread across Lunar's face. For the first time, she felt the true depth of her journey. The shy Omega, who had once walked hesitantly into the palace gates, had proven herself capable, wise, and courageous. She had faced every challenge with composure and integrity, earning the rare acknowledgement of the Alpha King and the trust of the palace itself. And in that quiet moment, with golden light spilling across the grand hall, Lunar understood something profound. Courage, patience, and wisdom were not measured by grandeur or boldness alone. They were reflected in subtle actions, quiet decisions, and unwavering integrity. They were the heart of leadership, the soul of trust, and the essence of influence. And she, the shy Omega who had once hesitated at the palace gates, had become its heart.